We've got Ethan Stowell. He's a chef owner of, and I can't even, I wish he was on so he could tell us how many restaurants, because there's so many restaurants that he has. I counted 15 or 16, I think. Heath, you know him well. And then also he's got some pop-ups. So he's going to talk to us all about that and do a little demo. We did record the demo, and just so you know, we're having some difficulties with him on the audio and video. He's at a retreat with his staff. So it might be an issue of him being a little out of range, and hopefully we'll be able to get that corrected and have him on with us. But so Keith and Ethan got together over the weekend and did the demo so that it would have been difficult for him to do during his retreat. And then I can hear him again, so he's back on. So we're going to do that. So that's Ethan, and then Keith Brunell. You guys know he's corporate executive chef for Nordstrom Restaurant Group. Keith is the president of ICCA and has been a member and board member for many, many years.
Guys, I'm sorry. I knew this might be a problem.
I can hear
We hear you. Don't move.
Yeah. Wherever you are, stand by that window. Well, we need to start the video part of it, Ethan, when you have a chance. But I'm going to go to our video first that we have with your demo, and then we'll come back to talk for everybody to talk. So Michael Cohen is a Seafood Technical Director for Alaska Seafood Marketing Institute. And we also have Jan Dickerson, who's the National Accounts for Alaska Seafood Marketing Institute. So thanks to all of you for being here. Jack Lee is going to join us in the second half. So he's got some slides to talk about seafood. So we decided to make this the focus of seafood. So every one of these webinars is going to have a certain theme to it. And some may be around the certain city or region of the country, and others may be around something like this, which is, part regional, but really it's more a national story about collaboration between Ethan Stowell and Keith Brunell and Nordstrom. So I think it's fascinating what you're going to hear that they've done here over the past year, I guess. You guys worked together, Keith? How long has it been?
With Ethan specifically in your team, 2 years now, 2.5 years to get up and going for New York.
Yeah, cool. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Let's just, we're going to show the video that they did this weekend that includes the demo on salmon, and also talk about their world and what they've been doing.
This is Keith Brunell, and I'm here with Ethan Stowell from Ethan Stowell Restaurant Group. How's it going today?
It's going fine, thanks.
Awesome. And we're here today on behalf of ICCA and GCIA to talk about what does it look like to have an independent restaurateur like Ethan collaborate with a retail chain who has a bunch of different concepts and restaurants in our portfolio. So we've had a bunch of questions put together by our board and a bunch of team members to really understand what does it look like, how do we make it happen, what went well, what went wrong, and the traditional relationship when two different entities come together to try to put a new concept out there.
Obviously I'm out here in the Northwest, so I love, Douglas crab, king crab, spot prawns, all the different oysters. My personal opinion, I think the Northwest does shellfish better than anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the tried and trues, the king salmons, the Copper River salmons, the Copper River sockeyes, the halibuts, the black cod, the rockfish, all those things. There's just such a bounty out here. I've always said that my three favorite things to cook are seafood, vegetables, and pasta. Mm-hmm. And that's what I eat. That's what I love cooking.
When you look at the United States, Canada, Hawaii, what do you see from a trend perspective? What have you seen your friends and other restaurant groups do in where they're headed?
Yeah, I'm a little bit different. I think there's this hope that after COVID, there's going to be this revelation that prices need to go up. But I think prices and expectations of customers are going to get more casual and a little bit, they're going to want to spend a little less money. I think the dining scene over the last 20 years has trended more casual. And I think this is just going to be a continuation of it. People love eating out. They love food. They love seasonal, cooking, and they love the services that restaurants provide. And I don't think that's going to go away. And I think the restaurants that, I think restaurants, unfortunately, a lot of them won't come back, which will make the ones that do come back a lot busier, which is good. And I think we're going to have to, probably simplify our programs a little bit to accommodate that increased volume. But I think now is an opportunity for all restaurants to kind of take control over their business and streamline things a little bit. I think after COVID, people have realized what's important in life, and you don't need to have 35 wines by the glass if four is really if you have four great ones. Yeah. So I think there's going to definitely be a simplification of things. But I'm looking forward to that. Our food, we like things simple, we like things clean, we like things neat. So if we can do more focusing and you know, and like I said, go more narrow in the menu, I mean, we're happy about that. You know, our food will be better, and our customer service will be better, and I think the business will thrive.
We're gonna prepare a dish that's on the Wolf menu that Ethan created. It's the
I'm gonna try. Just so you know.
No, the mise en place is there, so hopefully we can finish this thing. But it's the Alaskan king salmon with braised fennel, artichokes. We're just going to do a quick saute today on that, tagliasca olives, and some gremolata. So we're going to get started with that.
Yeah, thanks. First thing I like to do when I have king salmon, I always tell people to buy a center cut fillet so it's nice and thick and can cook evenly. I also like to pat all my seafood dry before I saute it. That moisture will really cool down the pan, and oftentimes your salmon will get it'll stick to the bottom of the pan. So I start off with a little salt and fresh cracked pepper. I definitely am a fan of freshly cracked pepper, not pre-ground at all. No, my favorite brand of pepper mill is Peugeot. They just work really well. I am today using what's called a scan pan. It's a type of nonstick pan. It's one of my favorite ones, you know, for cooking seafood. Gonna heat a little bit of grapeseed oil in the pan. Make sure it's nice and warm. My dry piece of fish I'm putting down. And at this point, I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a wiggle to make sure the oil's underneath the seafood or underneath the piece of fish so it doesn't get stuck, right? I'm just gonna saute this on medium-high heat for a couple of minutes on each side.
You know what I love about king salmon? It's delicate, but it's so rich and fatty.
Yes.
And you know, you get a nice sear, you give it a little flip, and it just carries over, and it just melts like butter in your mouth.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, it's just you know, it's one of the gifts of the Northwest. You know, it's probably the the seafood that's most able to pair with things like red wine and other things, like if you want to do like an oxtail sauce or something like that with it, something that's rich and meaty. Okay. Well, that's sauteing. I'm going to heat up my pan. This one I'm going to use a little bit of olive oil in.
A copious amount of olive oil. I know you guys love your olive oil at Wolf.
We do. I'm going to add a few of these nice artichoke hearts and some fennel sections. A couple more.
And what's great about the menus is you guys use the king salmon. We use the sockeye salmon. And, two totally different cooking methods, because sockeye is such a dry, lean piece of fish that you got to sear it for a minute and a half, flip it over, and it's literally done.
Yep.
Plus, they're such thin fillets.
A little bit more on that side. Yeah. There you go. Nice little sear it. Don't want to overcook it. Salmon's one of those things out here. We definitely cook things a little bit more medium rare to medium. You don't want it raw. You don't want it all the way cooked through.
Plate for presentation. Love it. So in the restaurant, this dish is great because it shows you the technique of cleaning artichokes and braising fennel and then finishing it a la minute. So you get this beautiful, vibrant, kind of earthy, root vegetable feel. Very earthy.
Artichokes are clearly one of the, or I guess definitely one of my favorite vegetables.
Yeah.
And then the combination of artichokes and fennel, very Italian. Very classic. Okay. Add some of these Tagliasca olives in. So oil-cured Ligurian olives, which are pretty hard to find, but they're fantastic when you can get them.
Give that a little rest right there, so breathe.
And roasting our vegetables a little bit here, heating everything through. Make sure it's seasoned properly. A little touch more. Add a little squeeze of lemon here. The goal here is braising your fennel and artichokes at the beginning to maximize the flavor, and then just adding enough heat to them just to bring it out. That's really the only thing we're looking for here. Salmon there. You want to sprinkle a little gremolata on top?
Yeah, and you got some more olive oil for us too?
A little more olive oil.
So here we have some lemon zest, lime zest, a little bit of shallots, parsley leaves.
Yeah, a little bit of garlic.
And then there we are right there.
And a little bit of more lemon juice on the top. Good drizzle, good olive oil. But king salmon, a little bit of fennel, artichoke, and two olives, a little gremolata.
So Ethan and Keith, really appreciate you guys being with us today and sharing about your story, because I think it's fascinating that collaboration and the way you guys have worked together for the past couple of years. And why don't we start out with that? Start out with, maybe some of the highlights and the low points of, when you guys started and got together, and what your goals were in the collaboration, and then, maybe some of the things that happened that were beyond expectations and helped both businesses.
Hey, I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. I told Keith early on that I would be in a rough cell phone coverage, that I'm not actually fly fishing on the river right now.
Nice.
But you guys are so awesome, and Keith's been great that I want to be able to jump in if I could, and I'm glad I could make it happen. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and Keith, thanks for including me in this.
Thank you, Ethan.
You sound great, Ethan, by the way. And thanks for doing this again with us, because you were actually live at one of our events we did, as you know, a couple of years ago with GCIA. Yep. So really, really happy to work with you again. So anyway, to you guys,
yeah, love to do more work, please.
Okay, Keith, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, at Nordstrom, we're known for our lunch business and big crowds and salads. And, we got this menu mix that I think that works really good for lunch. But when we went to New York, we figured we needed a heavy hitter from the Pacific Northwest to be able to tell the story of not only Nordstrom, but of high food quality. So Ethan became kind of the perfect component and partner to say, hey, we need a restaurant that can drive dinner business and tell a different story from what people normally associate Nordstrom with. And that's really where the partnership started, is about, hey, how can we bring that Pacific Northwest flavor, simplicity, high-end chef who has recognition, and bring in New York City. And then Wolf was the concept that we decided on. So, and then it was just basically in a room back and forth for a good amount of time, determining what to do, what not to do, what best fits the business, what doesn't fit the business. But, I'll turn it over to Ethan, because he's probably got some more details he's on.
Well, I mean, I'll jump in. And Keith nailed it. We wanted to come in to Nordstrom, New York. As a team, we said, okay, all right, we're being talked to about doing this partnership piece. Obviously, super honored to work with Nordstrom, high quality organization, great, great company. Pillar of the Northwest, all those things check all the boxes you want to check for, kind of the honor of working together. And then, we started thinking about like, hey, what do we want to do? We're being asked to go open a restaurant in New York, but it's in a Nordstrom, so what do we think about with Nordstrom? We think about high quality. We think about refined ingredients. We think about refined products, obviously on their shelves. But more than anything, we think about hospitality and customer service. So, that was kind of our mentality going into it. Was, we want to match the Nordstrom's hospitality and customer service expectations their customers have. And then after that, there's the whole thing about opening restaurants in New York, right? And it was a fair amount of like, hey, we're going to New York. And you're like, no. We are going to just go and open a restaurant in New York. We're not going to New York and having to impress. I think just by the fact that we toned it down, we tried to, we didn't try to go and we're not trying to go out there and compete with all, with Per Se and Restaurant Danielle and all those places. That's, that's not us, us is having good customer service, a great value proposition for our customers, a warm and inviting environment, great customer service. So, we went to go out and do our own thing, and in partnership with Nordstrom's. We wanted to represent them well. We wanted to represent the Northwest really well, but we also wanted to be true to what we do. And I think it worked out really well. And I'll also add, the Nordstrom team was awesome to work with. So, and that's 100% credit, to Keith.
Hey, Ethan, you had a couple of things you mentioned about what you took back from the Nordstrom experience that actually changed your restaurants. Can you talk to that a little bit?
For sure. As a bonus on this whole adventure and fun adventure was getting the inside scoop on and the inside view on a larger company's opening procedures and opening processes. So, some of the training processes and the way they do recipe books, has definitely influenced how we operate and will continue to operate. You don't get, we're a homegrown company that started off with one location run by a 28-year-old kid. That was me, who didn't know what the hell he was doing. And now, we've obviously grown and we've refined things along the way, but it's also nice to get that inside view of what a larger company that's years ahead of us does and how they manage things. So it's nice to be able to get that kind of, I consider it a little bit of a cutting in line, but I was happy to take it. So
Keith, on the flip side, what did you take away?
So on the flip side, I think it all started when we did go to New York, and then we went and visited Baldor, and I think Baldor kind of opened our eyes to, oh my God, there's all this product that's coming from Italy and Europe that we never see in Seattle. We get more of the Asian influence come from the islands in the East versus getting stuff from Europe. So we made a shift for our entire Northeast to go to Baldor and start using Baldor for produce just because of what we saw on the trip with Ethan. I think the other conversation, Ethan and I were able to talk for literally about 4 hours. We took a 6-mile walk from Brooklyn all the way back to Manhattan in a snow and rainstorm, and stopped at like 10 bars and just had conversations all along the way about the business, the clientele. But what we really learned from them is that we needed to be more nimble. We needed to find a way to simplify things. We needed to get rid of some of the bureaucracy in terms of how can we move our menus quicker? How can we feature specials quicker? How can we do things more ad hoc? I think we all as chefs in our operations get caught up in the bureaucracy of not being able to move fast and be nimble. So I think that really helped us look at things different and said, hey, we got to move a little bit quicker. We should find ways to address seasonality the way that Ethan and their team does. And then, really understand how does Northwest product translate in New York. But we learned a lot.
That's cool. Hey, talk a little bit too about, obviously we're coming out of this, COVID-19, not out of it yet, but you had to close down and you had to reopen. What kind of changes and what did you two have to do together? Did you have to change a lot of the things, or did you just pick up from where you left off when you closed?
Who do you want to start?
Go
ahead, Ethan.
I'll start. Well, I tell you right now, I had a full head of hair in February. That's joking. No, no, it was, Keith talks about being nimble and flexible. I'll tell you one thing I'm super proud of with our team is we are super fast. We transitioned to to-go models and to-go packages, for people to, honestly, we did packages because we wanted people to experience what they experienced at the restaurant, not just come and order one pasta and take it home and eat it out of a to-go container. We wanted them to get full meals from us, right? Get that same experience. So we also wanted to make sure our check average didn't drop. We definitely transitioned quick. We did that, and we're transitioning quick. We've done it multiple times in this thing. Everybody feels like everybody in our company feels like they are a yo-yo, because every time the rules change, we change with them, and we do it super fast. And I think it's been really good and engaging for our customers, so that they see that we're working hard. And I think our customers respect that and appreciate it, and we're trying to bring them something that's high quality and in the moment of what they want and what they need. So the COVID thing, it's far from over. But it's definitely a little bit of a fight, and it's a fight on a weekly, daily basis. So, I'm super proud of my team for being able to do what they do on a regular basis.
So on a long-term approach, what do you think is going to stick? You think you'll still do more of the kits and takeout and curbside or whatever?
Yeah, I think to-go kits are for here to stay. We actually changed our tip out percentages between the front of the house and the back of the house, because we think to-go is going to be, going to grow to be 15 to 20% of our business. And grow to that, right? It's, once we get back to normal, it'll be 10%, then it'll be 15, then it'll be 20. Because, we look at it as a retail item, not a restaurant item. So we're not charging $25 for a bowl of pasta and $15 for a salad. We're combining those two things for $30, or $25 or whatever the thing is, right? But I think it's going to be here for a long time. I think restaurant dining, I mean, if it continues with the same trend I've seen over the last 20, 25 years, I think stuff's going to get a little more casual and customers are going to want things to be a little bit cheaper. I think there will always be those elite high-end restaurants like Per Se and Danielle, and in Seattle it'd be like the Canlises and things like that, which are great. But I think the everyday dining trend and the everyday dining restaurants, which is what we want to be. We want to be the high-end version of the everyday diners. Mm-hmm. I think those are going to get a little bit more casual. So we're definitely taking this time to to focus, go deep on focus and narrow vision.
That's great. Keith, on your end, what do you have to say about like where you guys are now? And I know we talked to you before about where you were when you first started getting reopened, but are you back to normal-ish now, or is it still like very limited menu? Or
so yeah, we're the same as the Wolf Restaurant in New York. We're at about a 50% kind of capacity of menu items. So we reduced our menus by about half. But we did take a page out of Ethan's book. So when we saw the success of Ethan's Meals to Go, is we instituted a meals for two programming each one of our concepts, with the base menu being kind of salad, burrata, pastas. We didn't do the upgrade like Ethan has done, but that's really helped us get our name out there in a different way, where people would normally recognize us as, oh, I can take Nordstrom food to go or home or curbside. So we took a page out of his book with that, but right now it's 50%, managing every labor dollar, managing every penny that comes in, no stupid expenses on the outside. So we're doing what we can to do to make money at a 50% operating model. But we, with Ethan's menu, since they're more seasonal, we've created kind of more flexibility in the menu, where we'll put down summer beans, or we'll put down stone fruit, where normally we would specify the bean, like a runner bean, or the fruit, like an apricot or a peach. So we've kind of created flexibility in the menu where the chef can go ahead and use whatever bean he wants, use whatever stone fruit he wants, use whatever squash he wants, to make it easier for them to adapt to what's going on.
Very cool. Hey, Ethan, I'm going to ask one more question, a couple more to you guys, and then we're going to go over to, to talk to Michael and Jan. But you had a comment that you made, Ethan, that I thought was really awesome, about the day of screaming chefs are over, and, and what you want to accomplish in the kitchen as far as an atmosphere. Can you repeat that to everyone?
Well, yeah, I don't know exactly what the quote is, but I do think the days of the screaming chef are over. I think, I'm seeing right now, the people that we love hiring are just really progressive managers and progressive chefs. Because let's be honest, I'll tell you, the yelling chef and the screaming chef and the pots and pans getting thrown. That's how I was raised. I know that's how Keith was trained. But it doesn't work that way anymore. I love the trend of employees wanting a good, solid home life, work-life balance. It's not what I had, and I appreciate them asking for it. Now more than ever, I think of myself, as the person, that is asking the employees what they need and what they want to get the best production out of them. We didn't do that before. We yelled and demanded. I'm enjoying it, and I love the managers that do it. We preach about it all the time. Like, hey, we are not the bosses. We are not the kings of the castle anymore. We are there to support our employees and get with them what they need, and be respectful of them. Their emotions, their feelings, their time. And we're seeing that have great results, and we just are. We have very supportive managers that want to take care of their employees. Certainly it's more tricky. There's no doubt about it, and it's more work, but it's work that you really feel good about, because back in the day, you always heard about, like, hey, go work for, as a chef, as a cook, go work for a place for a year or two, then go somewhere else, then go somewhere else, then go somewhere else, learn all these styles. Yes, I get that. I do appreciate that. But I love people that want to be with us. We don't talk about, jobs anymore. We talk about careers from, when we're hiring managers. We have the expectation of ourselves to put our new hires in a position where they want to be with us for 5 or 10 years. You know, so I mean, it's just a mental shift we made, and we like it.
That's awesome. That is. Well, hey, one last question for the two of you, and then Ethan, I know you may have to go to take off to be with the rest of the group, and Keith's going to hang out with us hopefully before we go to Michael and Jan. But the question is actually going to be a nice segue into them, because I know you've done a lot with Alaskan seafood products, both in your restaurants, Ethan, but also within Nordstrom. And let's talk a little bit about some of those products that you landed on and why you did, and especially what you're doing in New York, because I think you're using several Alaskan seafood products there as well. So.
Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think Ethan and I we believe in the same thing. I believe that a lot of the best, the best seafood, there's products up here that you can't get anywhere else in the world. So when I look at those products of king crab, Dungeness, your king salmon, your sockeyes, and then, Ethan will talk a little bit more about the shellfish piece, but there's lesser known species like the weather vane scallops and all these wonderful things you get from the Pacific Northwest that we found sell on our menu because people already know that there's quality associated with that product. And I'm a firm believer that you can charge a premium for a product. Like we have a king crab deviled egg right now. No one believed me when I said we're going to get $15 for 4 deviled eggs with a piece of king crab on there. Now it's one of our top sellers in our grill. So whoever thought that a half ounce of crab on a deviled egg can get you $5, So I just think that the product speaks for itself. It's high quality, and the product always makes our dishes look good as long as we treat the product with respect and present it well.
Cool. Ethan?
Yeah. I definitely echo that. Obviously the shellfish piece is a little bit different. The oysters and mussels and clams and all that stuff are down in Washington.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks Alaska is like a half a mile away from Washington, but it's not. But we definitely get a glimpse in it. A lot of that product comes through Seattle because it's on the way from Alaska to Seattle is the first stateside spot. So we get tons of that stuff, and there's tons of Alaskan seafood companies in Seattle that we love working with, and we get to try their product. And Alaska's, it has amazing stuff. I wouldn't say, there's definitely a bounty of things that doesn't get out there, but it's a bounty, man. That place, if you're talking about wild seafood, that place has got a ton of it, and it's amazing that it's there and it's pristine, and the companies that are up there, they're, are working on preserving it. So, I have nothing but love for all the product we get from Alaska.
Awesome. Well, thanks. That's a great segue over to you. I think, Michael, let's go to you first, because we're talking about, and of course, just touched on sustainability. Maybe we ought to start with that and some of the practices. And if you could go into this season, because obviously it was a different one for you as well with all the issues that we've had.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you for having me here. It's great to hear from some amazing ambassadors for Alaska Seafood. So thank you, Keith and Ethan, for sharing your stories and how you use Alaska Seafood in your interactions with our partners. I think first, I'd like to say that it took a tremendous amount of effort to get the seafood harvested in Alaska to our consumer plates this year. It has been such a testament to the collaboration between the state of Alaska, between the communities in Alaska, and also the industry to be able to come together and be able to make sure everybody was safe. Everybody was going to stay healthy. We weren't going to affect our communities in a negative way. And so this was ultimately a huge challenge, and it took a lot of effort. And so I think there's a great story here to tell just how important the seafood industry is to Alaska. It is the largest manufacturing sector. So the state knew it was important to have a fishery happen this year. They knew it was important to invest in the management of how to make sure things were going to be able to run smoothly. And luckily, with a lot of work from the industry, we were able to get seafood exported to you guys, the chefs, to be able to work with it. So that's just one area that the industry has had to pivot in terms of how to make sure that we were able to get processing workers and facilities up and running and continuing to run, because obviously it's not over. So there are still logistical difficulties, but everybody's been joining together to make sure that there's a successful season and fishing opportunity for everybody. So I think that addresses our COVID practices and just how we've had to pivot. Obviously, it's amazing to hear from Keith and from Ethan and from many others about how the food service industry has pivoted. That obviously is a huge part of our industry, to be able to make sure that, restaurants are able to get Alaska seafood. And with that being such a devastating hit this year, the response from the food service industry has been amazing. To go into new packaging, to go into new cooking techniques, to go into new recipes and innovation, and then really adapting to that to-go option for seafood specifically. It's a difficult protein to work with, and so it takes a lot of effort. And like they were both saying earlier, being nimble. I think that is a huge element of how food service has been able to adapt and survive and actually thrive, in some cases with seafood. So thank you. I think that's a huge area that we were concerned about, but everybody is, trying to make sure that they can continue to evolve with this new normal. Maybe Jan, do you want to talk about some of the different areas that you've seen this actually happen in the food service sector?
Yes. So as all of you know, I get to live and eat in San Francisco. And what I'm seeing here, there are more, because of COVID and the number of workers in the processing plants up there, I think you're going to see a lot more whole fish. And what I see here in San Francisco is some really unique innovations using all parts of the fish. So Rich Table, which is a Evan and Sarah husband and wife combination, are doing takeout meals, which you finish preparing at home. Everything was beautifully labeled and beautifully boxed when it came, but they did a salmon collar. There were 2 collars. It was a meal for 2. There were 2 collars with heirloom tomatoes and also summer squashes roasted. So you just reheat it. And they had microwave instructions and oven instructions. They also served it with a pimento cheese. It was the best pimento cheese I've ever had. And these crackers that were to die for. They had taken, I thought this was so unique, they took saltine crackers and drizzled it with a little brown butter mixed with some fresh herbs, and then they drizzled that over the crackers, and then they roasted the crackers in the oven, and they were like heaven. I mean, they were almost too rich to put the cheese dip on top. The other one that's very interesting is a restaurant operation that actually serves, it's a fish and seafood operator that sells to restaurants. So what they've done is starting to deliver to homes. So they've also partnered in the last couple of weeks with Chef Chris Johnson from Lazy Bear Restaurants, but they served a cured wild Alaska king salmon tail. So it came in this beautiful roasting pan with a green Thai curry, was smothered in the curry, and then alongside it was some eggplant and red peppers. So just reheated that in the oven, and it was absolutely dynamite. That meat from the tail, as you know, is so tender and so flaky. And it was a huge tail. So it's probably about I'd say 1.5 pounds. And so it fed, we've got 3 people at home now. It fed the 3 of us. And then I made a curry out of it the next day. So it was really a well valued. The whole meal was $65. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of different innovative things. We were talking a little bit earlier, San Francisco opened up for the first time for inside dining at 25% today. But I think our chefs in this city, like in cities all over the world, are really coming up with some great takeout menu ideas and shifting the way we eat. There's also, and I'll talk about this now, and then maybe Michael can talk more, but some of the things we're seeing, for example, at Denny's restaurants, they introduced a beer battered Alaska pollock, so kind of a fish and chips idea. And what they did is they did research to find better packaging. So on the bottom of it's a black round dish, and on the bottom are vegetables, and then the fried things are on top, and then there's perforations on the top to let out any steam so you don't get that moisture condensation in the travel to come home. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing that Denny's is doing because of COVID, they have a keto salmon on the menu as one of their dinners, and they were cooking from frozen. In order to save labor, and found that this worked out very, very well, and they didn't have to take out too much fish or not have enough fish ready to go. So they are adapting that as a normal procedure. The other thing that we're seeing, some really great social media, Ivers, which is based up in Seattle. They have about 20 restaurants. They've converted a lot to takeout and drive-through, easy pickup. And they've also been a big proponent of Alaska seafood for many years.
Thanks, Jan. And on that front, we'll come back to you too, because I know you were talking about some increased uses of frozen salmon in restaurants. But Michael, let's have you talk a little bit about the frozen at sea benefits and the nutritional benefits of that as well.
Yeah. I think, when we talk about wild Alaska seafood, there's a big component of seasonality. Obviously, as a wild product, it's harvested according to their natural life cycles. And something that Keith said earlier was really important. I think having that nimble, flexible menu to be able to insert a product that's in season is definitely what works with the Alaska seafood portfolio as well. We start off with, there's over 80 commercial species that are harvested in Alaska. So what Ethan was saying about a bounty, he's totally right. So we can start with pollock, we move into flatfish species, rockfish, weather-vane scallops, then you move into, all of our snow crab, king crab products later on in the spring, and herring, all the way to halibut and sablefish. So you could really go through the year and be able to work off of the product that's available seasonally. However, because we are such a logistically difficult state, and we aren't just a half a mile down the road from Washington, it is so key for us to be able to utilize some of our high innovative freezing technology that we need to make sure to be able to preserve the quality like Keith was talking about earlier. So, at-sea processors on land, small scale, hand trolling, power trolling, hand line, these are all people that have invested tons of money in the freezing operations to make sure that they're harvesting seafood and freezing it at the peak of its quality and making sure that, they're going to be able to deliver a piece of salmon that's going to have that high nutritious content that's so unique to a wild product. You're going to get something that is different. It's one of a kind because of the nutrient content. So frozen offers such an array of benefits, not just for, being able to preserve quality. It also presents an opportunity to work with a different price point. It gives you the opportunity to be able to really emphasize the sustainability message that you want to support. It supports communities year round that depend on people purchasing seafood. So, there's definitely small sustainable fisheries in Alaska that really need to have people purchasing year round to make sure that they can survive through the year. It also just reduces waste. Keith can maybe talk about this more, but in the restaurant business, having a frozen product, and like Jan was saying earlier, Denny's has made sure that they can not have as much waste with less seafood on the menu right now. They want to work from a frozen product because it means that they don't have to thaw a bunch of products without knowing how much is going to be ordered. So the frozen product does such a great job of reducing that waste and making sure that you're utilizing the product. And then the last topic is just making sure to know that it's an environmentally friendly option. It's definitely something that people have a little bit of an adversity to because frozen product is viewed differently than fresh. And we support both, but obviously because of how much is exported and what we want to be able to make sure is available to a chef year round, that just offers so much more versatility with menu options. You can play with the seafood all year round and make sure you have the right components, the right maybe networking or innovative option like Keith and Ethan were talking about with a king salmon centerpiece that makes sense for your business and that you can sell at the right price. So I think, I could go on and on about frozen, but it really does sell itself.
I have a follow-up question to that, but I wanted to, it's a little shout out to Jack. Thanks for joining us, and feel free to jump in. We'll be to you in a minute to go over some of the information you brought on board. But so Michael, the follow-up on that would be, I would assume, because obviously restaurants closed and retail, did pick up, but did a lot more of the product go into the freezer this year because of that, compared to other years?
It's interesting, even though there's inventory from last year, because retail picked up so much and because there was such a need to be able to cook from home, there hasn't been a lot saved in inventory. And so like for Keith's product, sockeye salmon, it's off the shelf. I mean, like you can't find it sometimes. So, and for him, maybe he's working with some of the whole product, like Jen was saying, even in H&G form, which usually is not a common practice to be used at retail. We have Costco buying it. We have, big retail establishments saying, hey, we just want to be able to slack out some H&G fish and put it out there. And now we're developing materials for how consumers and people behind the retail counter can work with the H&G fish, how to roast whole, how to be able to steak, how to be able to fillet their own fish. So it's just the nimble, versatile options that COVID has brought about has been kind of surprising to us, but at the same time, we're excited about it.
Kevin, if I can add two things there. So we actually had someone come to us and said, hey, you guys were on a trajectory of selling about 60,000, 40 to 60,000 pounds a month, and then we shut down. So there was someone interested in our salmon because they were further processing it, cryovacuuming it, and sending it to the home consumer, where they were just taking cryovac, marinated, ready to go salmon. So they said that market just like literally took off. The other comment I wanted to make, what's great about it is, we buy our frozen fillets. We utilize every piece of it. We do our center cuts. We have our salad pieces, and then we found great ways to utilize some of the other product, the fall off into a salmon salad with miso and furikake that we put in now our e-bars as a snack pack. But the great thing about it is sockeye is our baseline salmon for all of our menu options. However, when king is in season, we will sell king, and people realize that salmon isn't just salmon, that sockeye demands this price, king demands this price. So we're able to take that small window of time and increase average check by offering high quality product.
Very cool. Jack, are you ready to jump in here and talk to us a little bit of it?
I am. Hey, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I literally just joined a minute ago, so I apologize if I go over anything that's already been covered. But I wanted to share just a few thoughts on what it is that people like and how we start seeing some important differences based on the type of consumer. So I'm going to share some information from our flavor platform, which is basically a system that allows you to see anything you could eat or drink, every food, flavor, ingredient, you name it. And then do people know what it is? Do they love it? Do they like it? Do they hate it? Do they fall somewhere in between? Have they had it many times or just once or twice? And how that breaks out demographically as well. And as an example, I'll show you something for a completely different product, and we'll show how this relates to seafood in a moment. I'm going to look at butter cookies as an example. And basically 58% of the general population loves or likes butter cookies. You can see that over here, 23% love it, 35% like it. But 68% of boomers love or like butter cookies. So you have a plus 10% skew toward boomers. Boomers like butter cookies more than other audiences on average. And if you look at some of the most boomer skewing foods, right? So the numbers here are whether boomers are more of an audience for that item than others. And these are all plus. So these are the most boomer skewing foods in America. You see some things that like, oh yeah, that sort of makes sense. Maybe these aren't things that we've done a whole lot with recently, but certainly sort of makes sense. And the question is, how does that thought of there being, let's say, boomer skewing foods play out if we're thinking about something like seafood? And it turns out one of the things that's sort of interesting about seafood is there's two ways you can sort of think about it in terms of how you bring it on in the menu. And by looking at that boomer skew and maybe looking at different varieties or species of seafood, you actually see something sort of interesting where a lot of seafood species do skew boomer. And on average, seafood species have a plus 10% skew toward boomers, basically the same number that we saw for butter cookies. And the interesting thing is this, that for that, let's say, boomer audience that likes seafood more than millennials or Gen Zers do, classic preparations tend to work really well. You have a nice built-in audience there. If you want to go after that more progressive, younger Gen Z millennial consumer, seafood is also a great solution, but it's not just about the seafood and the classic preparation. It's about doing it in a new and interesting way with, flavors from around the world, or maybe it's inside of a taco instead of a fork and knife type of a dish. And that is sort of the split. So seafood works for everybody. It works great sort of in classic ways with the boomer audience. But if you're going after a younger consumer, you actually want to start doing this by bringing in different flavors and whatnot that makes it seem like a new adventure in some way. And what I can actually do is maybe pull up a couple of our tools. So here's our flavor tool. Again, this is anything that people eat or drink. And I can maybe bring up, we'll go to proteins over here. And maybe we'll look at, different species of fish as an example. So you can see different types of fish here. There's many as you go down, and you start seeing quickly what is it that people know, what are the things that people love, what are things that people like, and what have they had many times. And I can actually take fish species, let's say, and let's make it look at this in a table instead. So if we want to maybe look at what are the most loved species of fish, I'll just give that a click. Well, it's fish overall, but salmon is right there at the top with actually a bit of a lead over the next closest species. But what's actually sort of fun too is guessing what is maybe the most disliked or hated species of fish. So again, this presumes that you know what it is, right? So it's not some weird variety that no one's ever heard of before. But if you did foods overall, things like black licorice would pop up on that list. What's the opposite of the most loved? Any, I guess from our panel, any guesses what might make it to the top of that list? I actually don't know the answer, so I'm just doing this live with you.
Gooey ducks.
The problem is no one knows what that is, right? And we do have, so I'm going to do a sort anchovy, sardine, and then caviar, I guess, sort of fits in there. Those rise to the top. The thing that you want to think about is actually the execution. So here we have our scores platform, which is every new item, every new limited time offer, every new menu launch. And what we've seen is after a pretty slow period in April and May where LTO introductions and new menu item introductions really slowed down, in May, June, July, we started seeing that really pick up again. We're not quite back at the monthly volume of new menu items launched by chains that we were at in January and February of this year, but we're getting pretty close, right? We're not quite there, but we're starting to approach it. So menu introductions are a thing again. And what you would want to look for in here is, some of those fish preparations probably are a little bit more classic, but you want to find some things that might be a little bit more different to appeal to that younger audience. So if I do like maybe a search for salmon, for instance, over the past few years, large chains have launched over 400 different salmon items on the menu. And you can sort of quickly browse and see, what are the things that people think they're likely to buy? What are the items they think are unique? And maybe we could even just sort of sort this by way. So let's look at these tiles. I'm going to look at a table over here. And here we have some numbers, purchase intent, uniqueness. I'm going to look for maybe some high uniqueness salmon items over the past few years. Let's see if we get some interesting ones. So the enlightened roasted maple pita tacos at BJ's from a couple years ago. I have no idea what a lollipop Naruto is, but that's thought to be quite unique at Kona Grill. That was from about 3 years ago as well. Let's even find some things from a little bit earlier this year. It looks like we have some sort of a test item at Subway, actually an Alaska wild salmon, a supernova sandwich. The name is making it unique probably in this case. But, I would gamble that a supernova sandwich is probably a name that would appeal more to a younger person. And again, even if it's not a completely different food or flavor or something, it moves you away from, hey, this is more of a boomer skewing thing, to we could pick up younger customers. And this is actually what you want to start doing. But I would actually go broader, not just hunt around in the system for other salmon items or whatnot. Just look at foods in general. What are some unique preparations that you're seeing? What are some unique formats you're seeing? And really bake that into your seafood offerings. I think there is a large built-in audience for all of the classic preparations of seafood that really do skew toward older consumers. It is really clear in the data. You don't see that same skew for other proteins. But if you want to also go after all those younger consumers that are looking for new things, we can do it. The thing that we've seen with seafood historically is it tends to be classic preps on the menu. And whereas something like, let's say, chicken, there's classic dishes and all sorts of crazy new ones and sauces from around the world. We actually have not seen that as much with seafood, but we should. I think there's a huge gap. There's a big piece of white space there for us as culinary people to go out and do something more interesting with seafood and break out of just the classic preps. Huge audience for the classic preps, but it does skew a little bit older. If you want the younger consumer to engage in it, put it in a different format, pair it with a different global sauce, give it a funky name, make it Instagrammable. We could really ramp that up. So I think there's just a big old piece of white space there for us that I would encourage us all to explore. So that's my short 1 minute on it. Yeah.
Jack, you had also said in one of the Datassential webinars a figure that said that seafood was the second most craved or the most missed item on the menu. And I think that goes directly into what you're saying about they're looking for a slightly different, a slightly ethnic. I think we still have a challenge of teaching consumers how to cook seafood at home and feel really comfortable with it. So
they're scared to make it at home, so they really only want to get it from a restaurant. And then if you can't go to a restaurant, it's okay. Now I really miss, and there's a lot of pent up demand for seafood right now. I'll actually share one last slide, which is sort of interesting. And I actually think this is good news. So let me know if you can see this. So this is the last few months of data for new menu launches at chains. And one of the questions we ask in our scores platform, whether it's for a concept that you'd like to test with us or just for anything that's released publicly, is in addition to, do you like it? Is it unique? How often would you have it? We also ask, how would you like to have this? Is this something that you would want for dine-in? Would you be willing to take it for takeout? And would you be willing to have it for delivery? The delivery line is the pink one at the bottom. And you can see that appeal for items by category. Delivery is appealing for pizza, but there's generally a gap between delivery and other modes of eating, whether it's to go or dine-in, for every other category of food. I actually would have thought, if we hadn't looked at the data, that there probably would have been a bigger gap between delivery appeal and other types of eating appeal for seafood than for other categories, because it's like, hey, do you really want to have your fish delivered type of thing? But you actually don't see that. There's two things that I would emphasize here. One, every kind of category other than pizza, consumers have different delivery preferences. There is a definitive gap across all categories between delivery and eating it there or taking it to go. This is something that we need to address as an industry as we rely more and more on delivery orders going forward, that we need to make things more appealing for delivery. That said, you don't actually see a bigger gap for seafood than you do for other categories. Seafood is no different than most of the other categories you see on this chart. So if you're thinking about, is seafood something I can do for delivery? The answer is yes. So you can do it just as well as any of those other categories right now, with the exception of pizza, right, which is tailor-made for delivery. But we still want to get the delivery line up overall across the board. So I think Jan is right. There's a lot of pent-up demand for seafood. It was, I think you're right, it was like the number 2 item after Mexican food that people said they were really craving and couldn't have during the pandemic and wanted to go out for restaurants to get. But also there is certainly an option in delivery too. It's not off the table. You see it very clearly over here. Seafood's no different than virtually every other category of the menu. That said, you definitely see a spike for dine-in versus to go for seafood, which absolutely makes sense. But as we rely on delivery, I think you put seafood in the same bucket, same category as pretty much everything else you serve on the menu, short of pizza at this point. So I think that's pretty positive.
Great, Jack. Yeah. So yeah, we're about to wrap up here. So some closing comments here. And Jack, if you don't mind to turn the host back over to me, I've got a video to show at the end of this. But some closing comments. I mean, what, Michael, how about you? Is there something you want to, add and throw out to our members and sponsors about, what's going on in Alaska? And you can talk about the weather in Juneau and how beautiful it is today.
Yeah, wonderful weather we've had. I think I would just like to say thank you for working with Alaska Products. I know it's not always easy, and we do have great distribution. So just being able to keep that communication, the coordination with our product, and getting the feedback back to myself and Jan, working with us closely, I think that's always going to be something that we value with our partners. And then thank you for being nimble. Thank you, chefs, for making sure that you implement seafood on your menus and practice working with Alaska Seafood because, like everybody's been saying, consumers don't really have the education to cook a lot of the product at home. As much as we try, it really comes down to making sure that you guys can provide it in with, that respectful way that Keith was talking about earlier to be able to make sure that that quality shines through. So thank you for being able to just boost the level of Alaska Seafood. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Jan, any further comments on that? Or yeah. Well, thanks for being with us. Keith, last any comments for the end here?
Yeah, I know we didn't get a chance to talk a lot about the other species, the bigger volume catches, pollock and cod, but we found ways to integrate that into our menus, into specials, and find a way to add value in our menu. Doesn't always have to be premium or prestigious, but those species are very high quality and lend themselves perfect to value on the menu. And there's a lot of different ways you can prepare it. But more importantly, Kevin, I just think that I really appreciate these because you get the valuable insights from Jack and the team to hear what's happening with different groups that we have, our sponsors. And then to have chefs on to be able to tell their story because, we're going through a drastic change right now. And I really think that things are going to change for the long term. So it's not going to be, we're going to get back to normal. There will be a new norm established. And I think every day that this continues to go on, people are changing the way they eat. They're changing the way they shop. They're changing the way they dine. They're changing the way they spend their money. So these are really good to see that shift in the moment. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you. And thanks for putting together with Ethan as well. Please tell him thanks. So we're going to close out with a video. But before that, I just want to say thanks to everyone. Thanks to all the sponsors and members that are on today. Thanks again to all of you and to Jack as well for coming on and sharing the insightful trend information with us. So with that, I'm going to show a closing video and we will see you guys in 2 more weeks. So it'll be the 14th of October will be our next one and we will see you then. Thank you.